Hi, it's Sunday, and I'm here with another mystery illness video. And this time we're going to talk about coping and managing and how it compares to healing. Just for starters, I'm going to say coping and managing is absolutely necessary in a mystery illness. I mean, that would be quite obvious to most of you. And I'm definitely in favor of it, but I want to point out that it's not the same as healing. Coping and managing gets us through our day, keeps us kind of functional. And, it's all about the kinds of things that you probably are already doing: sleep protocols, supplements, rest protocols, diet changes, treatments, using aids like inversion boards and sock helpers, that kind of thing. The kind of thing that gets you through your daily life and allows you to have at least some function. We need to do those things. We need to use those things. But it is important to remember that it's not the same as healing. These are treatments, ways to get us through the day. They aren't necessarily increasing our health or our abilities. Most of the time, they aren't actually moving us forward in our health, and they're just keeping us from slipping backward, hopefully. And you may have been convinced that this is the best you can hope for, because honestly, that's a lot of what's out there, both medically and in the holistic area. It's sort of like, well, we'll keep you in a holding pattern. We can do that. And, that is worth doing for sure. But I take a different approach. I think we can go further with this. I went further with this than a holding pattern. I actually got more functional. I actually lost a lot of symptoms. So this is an approach you might want to check out, check in, check into, something like that. Okay. So I like to look at coping and managing techniques, first of all, to be sure that they're the very best ones for you now. In a mystery illness, we know that things are always changing. And so you kind of have to keep switching them out to be current. So say, a supplement or a therapy that was really great for you at one point may not be great for you at another point. It may have done its work and it's time for you to move on. But you may not know that unless you keep kind of checking in on a regular basis to see what's really working for you and what, kind of maybe isn't. And then there are also those things that you try out that, you know, you honestly want them to work, but they honestly don't. So those can be assessed as well. And the reason why I think it's important to do that is you have limited time and energy when you have a mystery illness, right? And in order to make that forward movement to do the actual healing work, you need to reserve a space that has a little bit of time and energy in it for not for coping, not for managing, not for getting through your day, but for actual healing. Healing work, not just coping work. So making sure that your coping and managing strategies are as efficient as possible means that you can open up more time and energy for actual healing work, some of which I've described in my past videos, and more of which I will keep on describing. Um, so, combining coping and managing with healing, it's awkward. I'm going to grant you that. It's a little bumpy, sort of like making the time and like getting the coping strategies down, and it takes a little coordinating. But this is what works, I found, in moving forward and getting some traction in these illnesses. And if you haven't been moving forward and if you haven't been getting traction, you might want to listen up. In my last video, I talked about one way to reduce the need for coping and managing, and that is to tweak your environment so it's more pleasing to you. I also talked about in training to nature in any way you can, and that would be the healing part. So the tweaking your environment, that's sort of the coping and managing part, but the receiving the nice input from your environment, that would be the healing part. So I've used a lot more things than this for refining and in training, but this is the basic idea. Do things that mitigate your symptoms and keep you going. But make sure that you're not wasting your time with coping strategies that really aren't doing much for you now. One coping strategy that's so good it can also be a part of healing is to drink lots of water, which sounds super simple. But this is something that can serve you not only throughout your illness, but if you get out the other side, because our nervous systems are especially water thirsty, and the rest of our body craves water too. And there have been some really convincing books. There's a Dr. Batmanji who wrote a book on hydration, and there are other signs and studies that we are really actually generally not hydrated enough in our modern world. And keeping hydrated is super important for all of our health because our bodies have such a high percentage of water. I think it's something like 80% for the whole thing. In the nervous system, it's higher. So if your nervous system is running amok, then water can help that. And remember that when you help your nervous system, you're also helping your immune system and your endocrine system, your body chemistry, because they're all intertwined. And what you do with one happens to the other, or sort of gets translated through to the other, I should say. So keeping hydrated with good quality water, as good quality as you can manage, is an important way to cope and help yourself heal. In my opinion, good quality water does not come in plastic bottles because plastic migrates. And while BPA has been identified, an article I read pointed out that other toxins, which might be even worse, have not been identified and can leach into your water from the bottle. And also, there's already way too much plastic in the oceans and in the atmosphere, and that affects our health too. So, refillable water bottles are cheaper, you'll have better quality water, and, it will taste better too, honestly. Plastic tastes. So, I'm lucky enough to have good well water, and I structure my water with various devices that change the molecular structure so it goes into my cells more easily. But you don't have to get complicated with this. You can start simply with like a simple filter, which is much cheaper than buying bottled water anyway, by the way. Don't stress over it, but just do your best to get as good a quality of water as you possibly can. And another simple way to do that is if you're using tap water, let your drinking and cooking water sit out for 24 hours like you would for like a fish tank. They tell you to do that so that the fish don't have toxic chlorine in their water. Well, you don't want toxic chlorine in your water either, and it will evaporate if you let it sit there and off gas. Your body does not need the extra stress of toxins. It really does not. Some people use alkaline water. I have mixed feelings about alkaline water. I've tried it and it did seem helpful. But there is still the problem that it comes in plastic bottles. So there's the issue of toxin migration. And it's heavy to haul cases of it, and it's expensive. I prefer to use hydrogen water, which is something they use in Japan as a medical device. And there are small glass sort of bottle-like devices that make it over and over. They're battery powered, and you push a button and it processes the water. And while that's an initial investment, it's not a huge initial investment, and it's much safer than buying bottled water. What hydrogen water does is it adds hydrogen molecules to the water and turns it into a state between liquid and solid, which is called plasma. Cell biology, there is a cutting edge work involving plasma. So that may give clues as to how plasma water can be helpful to your health. You do want to be careful in choosing these hydrogen water devices because you want the ones with PEM technology, or you might wind up drinking extra doses of chlorine with your tap water, which, as we've pointed out before, is not what you want to do. I am not a hydrogen water salesperson, so I'm not going to go on more about it. But if you're interested in knowing more about it, you can email me at sundayoliver@sundayoliver.com and I'll send you more info. I like, getting this information out, but not everybody needs the full Megillah. But beyond the whole hydrogen water thing and even the whole hydration thing, keep in mind that your coping and managing strategies can really help you, but they aren't healing. The more on point your coping and managing strategies are, the more real healing you'll have time and energy for. And the more healing you're able to do by entrainment and other methods, the more you'll move forward. So, this is a really important point. I want you to sit with this for a while because I don't hear anybody else talking about this either. And it was really, really key for me. And I've also seen it work for my clients. So, consider what you might do to kind of streamline your coping and managing techniques that you have now. And some of that might be like actually adding coping and managing techniques that make things easier for you to do that you're not using, like, say, sock aids. Those are really simple things, but that would mean you're not struggling painfully with your socks for 10 minutes like I used to. Oh my gosh, that used to be such a big deal because I couldn't grip very well and my feet didn't move very well and I couldn't bend very well and all those things. So adding, the right coping aids can save you time, but also eliminating ones like, say, I did a course of acupuncture, right? And a lot of people do well with this, but honestly, it just completely riled up my symptoms and did not get me better on the other end of the riled up symptoms. So that was a coping strategy I gave up because it was taking a lot of my time and a lot of my energy, and it cost me money, and it wasn't doing much for me. Go through your, if you, as you go through your day and as you go through your coping strategies, just kind of check in and see, am I doing this because I set it up a long time ago and it worked for me then, or is it working for me now? And if you'd like to kind of get a very small digest of coping strategies and healing combined, you might want to check out my anxiety series here on YouTube. It's a series of short videos that gives you tips on reducing anxiety and also has some healing work in it, in some of them. And the reason why I suggest this is because the chemical process that provokes anxiety is very similar to the chemical process that provokes um, mystery illness symptoms. Plus, if you have a mystery illness, you're probably kind of anxious because, it is a worrisome situation. Let's get real about that. So, if that's something that appeals to you, I'm going to leave the URL to the series at the bottom of this video, but also you can just click back to my channel and find it on my playlists. And do consider while you watch them, what's the difference between practical tips and actual healing? Okay, until the next time, this is Sunday.